What's up, everybody? Today we are on the Tea with THC, and we have Kerri Accardi today. Please, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Thanks, Krysta. My name is Kerri Accardi. I'm the founder of 420 Media since 2014, a marketing agency for the cannabis space. And we're getting ready to launch a streaming channel called DZTV, which will distribute content and really help brands reach a mainstream audience.
I love that. And I think one of the best things that we have together is that we've met in the media space, and you've been a huge help and support. So we just want to say thank you for that, for sure. Can you tell a little bit about, you have such a cool background, and I think not just media or not just cannabis, but just overall, you know, can you tell us a little bit about that and what you do in the space and outside of the space a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. I'm a native New Yorker. I'm currently in Arizona. I'm not into the cold weather anymore. When I was younger, I'm a trained actress. So I did a lot of acting and independent work in my 20s. And then I went back to school in my early 30s for filmmaking. And so that's when I went behind the camera and started to direct, and eventually ended up becoming a pretty good producer, because producing is really about getting things done and your network. And so I always had a very big network, and to be able to call people in for anything really is kind of what I've done in life. And then in 2013, my aunt passed away, and I had like a higher power come over me that I am supposed to help educate the world about cannabis. And so I took those skills and learned a lot about the plant in the interim, and started building media assets and milestones in this space.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like your passion shows through your work, for sure. You know, like that's something that definitely we could see. So thank you for that, because you know that's not always the case in this space, right? So but yeah, you're definitely the plug. Everyone keeps always tells me I know a lot of people, and Kerri, you always know those people too, so you know, plug of plugs. And you know, what has you been able to maneuver through the cannabis space, media space? A lot of people are jumping in the space, and some people you know, are misled or don't have any insight to what it really takes as far as investing into yourself in the space, maybe some reality of income and how that all works in order to grow. You know, can you share a little bit about that and how that looks and how that works in the space or in media in general too?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's changed a lot over the years. Back when I started back in, 13 and 14, trying to ask people to give you a lot of money to then showcase everything they've been hiding for 20, 30, 40 years was quite the conversations. And so it's changed a lot. People realize that their presence is important. And if someone doesn't know about you or the product, then how are they going to be able to do next steps? And I still see that as an issue currently, which has gotten me into the next project. But I think as far as the industry and people coming in, it's just shifted a lot, and it went from a lot of black market legacy, where now it's combined with corporate, combined with patients and pioneers. So people definitely see the value, and media has changed. So we have social media now where you can do lives or podcasts like this, and you're able to reach an audience that just really didn't exist before for people, as well as technology. I mean, you can like make a movie on a phone now, which just never, ever existed before. So even in my time filming in our content over the past 10, 12 years is professionally filmed, people with big cameras and, lighting setups and microphones, whereas now It's much easier to set things up, and it's much more, yeah, exactly. And it's much more affordable. It's much more affordable now, and you're really getting great technology. So, so I've seen that change. And as far as the industry or industries, I think it depends where they are, depends where their company is. It depends the state, are you talking to people in California or New York or in Colorado? And all of our experience has changed through the years, and a lot of us are jaded because we've seen a lot, we've seen a lot. And then you have a lot of new people coming in, and the excitement's there. I mean, it's weed, right? It's plant wellness. It's fun. It's, people are great. And then there's the serious side of, doing work and getting paid for it. And that's been an issue across the board in this space in particularly. And I'm not really sure why that is. I'm not really sure why that is, but I definitely do see it changing. And I think, in my opinion, from what I've seen, I think a lot of people used to get really excited. Like, we'd hang out at the event, and then, oh, Kerri and Krysta are going to work together. We're going to do this. And but no one thinks about, like, well, what is that work? What is that messaging? Whose role is it to talk to a customer versus to do the technology, to do the filming? And so really getting defined on roles is really important, I think, both within the space of your partners and also with the customer, and the client, and what their expectations can and will be,
Yeah,
it's interesting.
I definitely know we've experienced that tons of times with a lot of people, and it's kind of frustrating, I feel, and I definitely do see people get jaded, and it's I think a hard way to maneuver and to create business if no one's willing to do the work, and things don't make sense, and everybody's not clear on expectations and roles. Nothing ever kind of happens, so you just sit in that limbo state, and I think that's one of the things I for sure, really try to produce out of our network, is to connect the dots so that there's some momentum catching, so that way we could plug in when we fit in, or get in if we fit in, so that's one of the things I think is holding the industry back, is everybody trying to fit into their role, right? Everyone could be a good pothead, right? So I think, back to your point too, I think, like, we just have that stigma of we're potheads, or anybody that does consume, is we have that stigma of we're not a hard worker, which is, we've proved time and time again that's not quite the case. But I feel like it's just people put us into that shell, and that's one of the biggest things I tell people, as my clients, as I move forward with them now, is stop putting yourself into this pigeonhole of just your cannabis, or if you're gonna put up a good fight, let's talk about that later. Let's get some momentum going before you put up that hurdle on what you're doing, because it just automatically brings that stigma. Whether we believe in it and all, and there's proof there now that everything is working, and whether it's the industry, or whether it's medicinal, or whether it's recreationally helping us, it's the proof is in the pudding. It's hard to go against it, and I think we're positioned, and we've been very knowledgeable for that a while now, and I agree, the people that are like us are very jaded at this point. We're like, come on. Like, what is it going to take for you guys to see, right? So.
Yeah, it's hard. That's really hard. And it reminds me, I remember when I first started and I met the founder of Normal, Keith Straub, and him and a guy named Vivian McPeak, who is the founder of the Seattle Hemp Fest, which was one of the original festivals, went on for 29 years, really pushing for legalization and legislation. And I remember how frustrated I was when I got into this, learning about our endocannabinoid system, and like, why wasn't cannabis being used as medicine, or why wasn't it open? I'm someone who's been consumer since a very young age. And I remember meeting Keith and just being like, how have you dealt with it for all these years? I would be so like, I was frustrated and I was like a year in. And now it's 12, 13 years later for myself. And it's a wild position to be in, because when you see so many benefits from a plant, and then you watch politics take it over.
Yeah.
It's very, it's like a mind fuck, really. It really is. And yeah, so I look at them and I think, well, they fought for years, and there's people that were fighting for 20, 30, 40 years longer than myself. And I think those people are the ones that really, they understand either the plant potential and benefit, or the politics is not right. And so something pushes us to move it forward. And we're her warriors.
Yeah. It's like passing the baton. They put in that work, and now we're jumping in to continue to carry the weight. I feel like, and like last night, we were at a health and fitness event, and we met them, and they're literally breaking down their company and telling us, this is what we do. We want to get people together. We want to do this, and that. And I'm like, we're doing the exact same thing, but you have a health and fitness aspect to what you're doing, and we have an advocacy and more of a political aspect to what we're doing, right? We're both in the health and wellness space at the end of the day, but you're pushing the workout, the mind body that way, where we're pushing a different avenue. And once we start really working together, I think that we'll just continue to get that power.
That's the key, is working together.
Yeah. And that's, I know we, again, back to, I couldn't say somebody that doesn't plug into communities better. You definitely plug into all the communities. We are plugging into all the communities. And I think people like us, it's really important that we're connecting the communities together, so that way we can all get on the same page, right? Mm-hmm. It's silly to have communities in the community fighting each other, like, oh, you're hemp, you're cat, it's like, it's wild. It is so wild. Yeah. But can you tell us a little bit about what you did before, a little bit more within the media side? I know you said you were an actress, and I've seen some of that stuff online. Can you tell us a little bit about young Kerri?
Oh, I want to go back. Take me back. Take me back. Young Kerri lived in New York City most of the time. Sometimes California. I've always done a West Coast, East Coast, but I am a real New York City girl. So being there in my 20s and 30s was a real treat. And worked in media. That's when they started. So when I got out of school, well, I did acting when I was younger, in my 20s, and some fun stuff on MTV, and some, cool independent stuff, and little model for short people. But as that expanded and I went back to school, we started, I was working on a cool web series right prior to getting into cannabis, and then also restaurants and like clubs and stuff like that, because media was just starting to come on. That's when then social started to come on. And so just getting cool pictures of food, just the same way we would of herb, or the atmosphere, and making cool promo videos. So stuff like that is what I did. And I had a really fun life. I did a lot of like dinners and shows and like New York stuff and clubs. It was another world of freedom. It was a lot different, and a lot more leeway. We had a lot more leeway than cannabis. You're very restricted in a lot of ways, like whether it's media or having a conversation, like real, like, where are you? And is that person the right person to have the conversation with? And so it's fun now breaking that stigma. Even, if you're sitting at a bar or a restaurant, someone says, what do you do? And I say, I work in cannabis and media. And they're, what? What is that? What does that even mean? you know, and back when I started, like, there was nothing. Like, people literally would say, no, you can't do that. You can't create media in cannabis. Like, what are you going to do? People smoking? And no, it wasn't that. It wasn't. And we proved it from early on, from creating Vine videos that were 6 seconds to full tours of dispensaries to getting commercials aired. The messaging has to get out. And so for me, media now is like just this open playground, really. And who is our audience and how we're going to reach them. And those are the different mediums that you can choose from, which is, it's fun. It's different. You know, back then, you know, even when I was acting, you had to go on an audition. You had to stand in front of someone. Hi, my name is Kerri, and you know, whatever, all this stuff. Now you have like influencers or people like yourself that, hey, it's Krysta, and I'm here with Kerri, and you're getting that value, and so it's shifted. And so I'm kind of looking at it in that way and having fun with it, of what can we do now versus what can't, you know, what's stopping us, because there should be no reason to stop us anymore. That's why the stigma exists still.
Yeah. No, definitely. I agree with you there. And it was cool to see that you had even a commercial run during the Super Bowl, you know, one of the biggest times to do it. So
yeah, that was crazy too. That year, it was wild because I had a deal with CBS, what they call an agency of record, which brings content to television. And then they had reneged on that deal right after the election in 2016, which was terrible. It's going into documentary, but it was a terrible time. And then there was a company that put on a PR campaign that they couldn't get their Super Bowl commercial aired and blah, blah, blah. And it was really just lies, to be honest. I'm not going to name the company, but it was just a PR campaign. And they got so much press off this PR campaign. And I was like, we have an agency of record. So I started to just make some phone calls. And then we were able to actually air during the Super Bowl. And well, it wasn't national because it's not federally legal, so it can't be. It was local. And we had it running in the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. And the person in that is the former commissioner of agriculture of the Virgin Islands, also a 7-term senator that pushed for legalization. So it definitely was cool to accomplish. You know, It's not the end goal, but it was definitely a cool milestone, especially considering we actually aired and it wasn't just a PR campaign.
Yeah, that's a huge accomplishment for sure. So speaking of accomplishments, what do you hope to leave in your impact on within the space, within media? What do you hope to accomplish? I know you have some big plans. So what are those?
Yeah, well, we really need to reach people now. And so, you know, my goal when I first started was really to educate the world about cannabis. And it sounded like so lofty and crazy, but, you know, when you get a higher power, God, whatever you believe in, you can do anything. And so that's really how I started. And then, you know, life and business, and you get jaded and stuff. And so I feel like a part of that was lost if in the past couple of years, and just came back. And so after recently losing my brother-in-law again, someone I love, that waited until the end to use plant wellness in a state that's legal, was disheartening and eye-opening, as well as friends and colleagues in the space that don't realize the power of the plant, the actual power of the plant, like can create apoptosis, which kills cancer cells, or, you know, helps children from having seizures, and helps a lot of people with their mental health, and, you know, a plethora of benefits from the plant. And so now my goal is double enforced to really take the brands that do exist, the brands that do have products, and the retailers, and let's bring them to the people. And so I'm getting ready to launch this second channel, this streaming channel called DZTV, which stands for Dimensions. and it's going to encompass more than just cannabis. So it'll be plant wellness. And this time we're going to bring brands onto the channel. So really it's like cable meets streaming, or with QVC. We want to add shopping into the component. We want to bring people into dispensaries. So, they're not fearful, because that fear is real. That stigma is real. And it's often, like I mentioned, people wait until they have no other options to give cannabis a chance. And it's awful. It's awful, because it's actually a plant that can help so many people. And so I want to help get that through, and I want to help brands that want to get through, right? Brands that want to reach people, and we're gonna rally for them. We're gonna put them on the web and audio and podcasts and smart TVs, and we're gonna just rally with press and PR to different demographics, whether it's seniors or athletes or culture. But it's really super, super important now that we get outside of this space, right? People think the space is because they know so many people, or it's this, everyone's talking about us and no one knows anything. They don't know anything, nothing, zero. Even the most popular brands, the average person doesn't know.
100%. 100%.
So we have to help that. We have to get that out. Nowadays you have, hemp beverages at the regular stores. You have lotions and potions and tinctures that can literally help with your body inflammation, and you feel better. You just feel better. So why wouldn't we want to feel better? So that's really my goal, is to connect the products to the people, because now we're here. We shifted from going black market to we can walk into a spot and there's still that fear. So let's bring that fear down by bringing this to people's phones and TV and programs they're watching already, and let them watch on their time. So that's really the goal.
I love that. Yeah. We're constantly, continuously educating and re-educating our own community, and it's crazy. Not to say that some people don't need it, but, I definitely agree with you, connecting to the regular consumers. Anytime I talk to somebody and they're like, oh, I'm not in the industry, I'm a consumer. I'm like, you're one of the most important pieces, so, yeah, and thank you.
Sales. It helps their sales. If people know about them, then their brands, it's cool to feel popular at the trade show with all your friends, but how many people have lost their businesses, been to every trade show, but now have no business because they didn't break that customer that was going to purchase their products and use them. And then they rally for you, because you get people like, yeah, I have no more pain. You got to get this.
Right. Yeah. A lot of people spend a lot of money into those shows and a lot of things, forgetting about the consumers and the people that are their advocates. So I definitely think that's a huge focus that any brand should be focusing on, and utilizing somebody like yourself is key, so definitely.
Tell them, Krysta. Go tell them.
You already know. Well, can you tell everybody where to find you, how to follow you, where to download all the information so they can stay tuned?
Yes. So Kerri Accardi is my name, and my best email is info@420media.us. Website DZTV.app. Please subscribe. We're just catching subscribers now. We're going to put some fun programming out on 420 to just really lay the foundation of education. And again, let's bring it digital so we can get more people involved. And then I have 420 Media is the agency. So any brands that want to, get exposure, programmatic or DZTV or billboards and stuff, you can utilize 420 Media, and that site is 024.agency, I believe. Let me double check that. Yes, 024.agency, or we have 420media.us goes to it as well. But I'm trying to get away from the 420 on everything because it's just a nightmare. Oh.
You know the limitations. The
Like,
fun
a trademark on that. I got one of the trademarks on that, so that's good.
That's good. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you giving us some tea. We'd love to see you some more on DZTV, and that is the tea with THC. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate you coming to Kerri.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.